Okay, is everybody ready? Everybody ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. All right, we are talking about dealing with anger. We're on lesson 4 on dealing with anger in our series Seeking Wholeness. We're going to continue from where we left off last time. I'll start off with reading James chapter 1 verses 19 to 20. It says, "You know this, my beloved brothers and sisters, now everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God." So telling us to be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger because our anger doesn't bring forth the righteousness of God. So our anger brings forth sin, or it can lead to sin. So the anger itself isn't a sin, but it can lead to sin. So anger can impact our self-control. It can impact our ability to follow God. And in Galatians 5:22 to 23, Paul tells us that the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, and against such things there is no law. So of that list, so those are the fruits of the Spirit. So those are the fruit. You'll know a tree by its fruit. So those are the characteristics which you'll know, that the Spirit is operating in you. And so you wonder, out of anger, which of those fruits does anger bring about? Does it bring about love or joy or peace or patience or kindness or goodness or faithfulness or gentleness or self-control? Pretty much none of them. So anger will prevent you from operating within the Spirit. Anger will prevent you from being led by the Holy Spirit. It'll hinder you from being led by the Holy Spirit. So that's why we want to study it, to better be led by the Holy Spirit. So here's the outline for today. The outline is short. It's an introduction. So that was the introduction. Then we'll go over our traits of wholeness. We're going to review parts 1 through 3 that we've done, a brief review. Then we're going to continue on the 3 categories of how we express anger, looking at exploding, stuffing, or indirect. And then we'll look at 2 of the causes of anger. 2 of the causes of anger. So traits of wholeness. So we're in our series Seeking Wholeness, and we're striving to get some characteristics. In our series, we're looking at being spiritually, emotionally, and mentally healthy. So we're dealing with life current stresses and also being healed from the wounds of the past. We're supposed to have eternal life, but we're also supposed to have joy, peace, patience, and self-control here on earth. So we're looking at, okay, well, how exactly do we do that? So the traits that we've identified, we have 30 traits that we're striving for, that we've identified that we're striving for. They include authenticity. Number 2 is honesty, kindness, not seeking external approval or validation, living by values and principles, setting boundaries, taking ownership of our responsibilities, living with passion and purpose, optimism, confidence, healthy relationships with others, not losing control of our emotions, being free from addiction, addressing conflict, being vulnerable, not being critical or judgmental, not being jealous, so we can generally applaud the successes of others. We forgive those who've wronged us in the past, knowing that we're worthy of receiving love, not being afraid to fail, able to manage irrational fear, worry, and anxiety, selfless encounters with others, not manipulating others to try to control their actions or their reactions. We care about how other people feel, so we have empathy. We want to be patient, not giving in to peer and social pressure. We want to be able to communicate directly, not take responsibility for other people's emotions, and not expect other people to take responsibility for our emotions. We want to be slow to anger, which we're looking at today. And then finally and ultimately, we want to be led by the Holy Spirit. So those are the traits of wholeness that we're striving for. Now I will start give a brief review of the previous lessons talking about anger. There's 8 families of emotions, and anger is one of the families. Anger is one of the families of emotions. And with anger, there's hostility, fury, irritability, annoyance, wrath, and rage. Those are all in the anger family. All of those things are in the anger family. Anger impacts your mental ability. So when you're angry, your world gets simplified. You see things in black and white. Your doubt gets eliminated. You lose your self-consciousness. You get energized and focused. So that's why some people turn to anger. But also in anger, you get put into a trance-like state, and it sort of dumbs you down. So your focus gets narrower. You perceive the world in a selective and a limited way. So your view of the world gets very selective and limited when you're angry. You don't think about the consequences of your actions, and you don't consider other people's perspectives often when you're angry. So it causes poor decisions. So when you're angry, it basically dumbs you down. So you're not able to think at the intellectual capacity that you are otherwise. That's why Proverbs 29:11 says, "A fool always loses his temper, but a wise person holds it back." Because losing your temper turns you into a fool, basically. It's one of the reasons we want to avoid it. Let's see. And then we talked about righteous anger. The concept of righteous anger. We talk about righteous anger often in the church. So when we're angry, and we say that it's when we're angry about an offense to God or His Word. It says, or when we're angry about what God is angry about, we call that righteous anger, and that's often talked about. But there aren't really any biblical verses that tell us that that's what we should strive for. But there are a lot of verses about anger, but the verses tell us that we shouldn't get anger quickly, so we should be slow to anger. They tell us, number 2, talks about how we should express anger. And then number 3, it tells us that we shouldn't stay angry. So God is more concerned with how quickly we get angry, how we express our anger, and how long we stay angry versus forgiving. Not so much concerned about why we're angry. All right, and then we talked about, let's see, any comments so far?
Yeah, I think before you talked about righteous anger,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds like more like a long-term angry, how it kind of impacts you for the long run, is what it sounds like. Is that right?
Well, usually righteous anger is kind of people talk about things like,
So before that.
before righteous anger. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The mental impact.
Yes.
Oh no, those are things that happen while you're angry.
Oh, in the moment.
In the moment. So in the moment you get angry, you don't really think about other people's perspectives. Your focus gets narrow. You get energized. It's in the moment, while you're angry. So it kind of puts you in a different state of being. You're not worried about what people think about you when you're angry. So you may do things when you're angry that you wouldn't normally do.
Thanks for clearing that up. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. And let's see. Now we talked about being slow to anger. Let's see. Peter, did you have Proverbs 14:29?
No.
Oh.
I have Ephesians.
Okay.
That's
Chris. Oh, okay, Chris. All right.
I couldn't find my mouse. Okay, Proverbs 14:29. A patient man has great understanding, but a quick-tempered man displays folly.
All right. A patient man has great understanding, or slow to anger has great understanding. So God tells us to be slow to anger. And so that's our godly goal, is to be slow to anger. And so it's saying, and God refers to himself as slow to anger. So God doesn't say that he never gets angry. He says he's slow to anger. And that's a characteristic he describes him as. So that's a goal we should have. Be slow to angry, not to blow up instantly, but also, maybe not to never show anger isn't necessarily a goal, but it's to be slow to anger. So don't let everything make you angry, or don't stay in a constant state of anger. And then we talked about how anger can reveal your heart. Anger can reveal your heart. And we have Angel back. You had Luke 6:45.
Yes, sorry, I had to go to my computer, my volume on my phone. I stopped being able to hear you all of a sudden. Luke 6:45. Where did it go? Sorry, 1 second. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of.
All right, the mouth speaks what the heart is full of.
That is so true.
Yes, the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So you bring out the treasures that are in your heart. And then we saw a quote from Brian Loritz that said, "How we react is often a better thermometer of our hearts than how we act." How we react is often a better thermometer of our hearts than how we act. So your anger can help to show you what's actually in your heart. What's in your heart. And so your anger reveals your idols. It can reveal your idols. So when you get angry, ask yourself, what it is that was violated. What are you defending? What is it that you love that was threatened? Or what is it that was an injustice? Was it a threat to your pride or your ego? Was it a threat to your security or safety? A threat to your freedom? Was it a threat to your respect or your status? Was it a concern of other people's opinion of you? A threat to your reputation, your intelligence, or your significance? Was it a threat against your gender or your political view, or was it a threat against your God? So think about what it is why is it that you're angry? What is it that makes you angry when people talk about what? And that will show you what might be an idol in your life. What's important. It'll show you what's important to you. What's important to you. And then, if we build our happiness around things, if I build my happiness around the success of my job, if I build my happiness around my spouse or having a spouse or how much money I have or whether my kids are in the right school or my kids are perfect, if I build my happiness around that, then a threat to that will make me angry. Something that's going to stand between my job or my income or me getting a spouse or me having the perfect kids, whatever stands against it is going to make me angry. So if you look at what makes you angry, that can help you see what's really important to you. Are you getting angry about people talking about vaccines than you are about people talking about God? Are you more angry about people talking about your gender than you are about people talking about your God? What you get angry about will show you what's really in your heart, what your idol is, what you really value, what it is that you really value. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that brought me back to the last session we had where someone mentioned their car was keyed.
Mm-hmm.
And they got angry, right? They felt justified, right? Someone
Right.
caused harm to the car, not necessarily, but hurting the car hurt them. So what you're saying is that sense of anger comes from the idolization of the car?
It could be the idolization of the car, or maybe what we kind of touched on there, and we're about to touch on. It could be also this: you feel disrespected
Okay.
or injustice. So it can also be So it could be the car. So if you treasure your car and you idolize your car, then definitely you'll be angry about it. But it could also be you felt disrespected, or you felt like an injustice was done to you.
Okay.
So it can be it can be it can be the thing, or it can be the emotion. It can be the emotion, and we're going to get into the emotion a little bit. Yeah, and so with the emotion, we talked about the fact that anger is a secondary emotion. Anger is a secondary emotion. So it's usually you feel some emotion and then you get angry about that emotion. So you feel some, so maybe it's pride, or maybe so we looked at the example of you're looking at your phone, someone texts you and you're looking at your phone and the light turned green and you didn't notice, and someone starts honking behind you and you get angry. And so someone may get angry because they felt guilty because they weren't paying attention. But someone else, they may get angry because they felt embarrassed because this person honking is drawing so much attention to them. So it's the embarrassment that made them angry. And another person may feel disrespected. You don't have to honk at me. I know how I've been driving for years, so it could be the guilt that causes it. It could be the embarrassment, or it could be the disrespect, but it's usually some emotion first that triggers the anger. But a lot of times we aren't aware of that emotion. We skip past that emotion and go to the anger. So if we actually try to identify what is the emotion that we're actually feeling, that can also, God can use that to help us understand ourselves and help us understand our hearts. So yeah, so like you mentioned, Kiko, it could be an object, or it could be the emotion. So it could be, the guilt. It could be the embarrassment. It could be the disrespect. It could be your pride. So your pride might be the idol. So it may not necessarily be the car. It could be your pride. It could be your pride that was hurt, or someone disrespected me. So if you start to look at the emotions that trigger your anger, then that can actually change your life. That can help you understand yourself better, and that God can use that to change your life. So if you look, so your anger helps you identify your idols, and it helps you identify your emotions. And so let me list off a few of the emotions that trigger anger. Sometimes it's triggered by fear. Sometimes it's hurt. It can be guilt, betrayal, powerlessness. It might be shame. It might be insecurity, rejection. Maybe your hopes got dashed. Maybe you're feeling trapped. You might be feeling hopelessness or helplessness. It may be unmet expectations. It might be because you felt resentment. It might be envy or jealousy. It might be your pride. It may be because you feel like you're a failure. You feel like you failed. Or maybe you feel a sense of worthlessness. Or maybe loneliness that caused you to get angry. It could be depression. It could be anxiety. It could be stress. It could be remorse. It might be that you're tired or fatigued. It might be grief, going through grief. It could be embarrassment. It could be sadness, or it could be worry. So all of those emotions can trigger anger. And sometimes we skip past the emotion and we just go straight to the anger. So we go to the anger, but we don't really think about the fact that, I was really resentful. I was really jealous. I was really felt rejected. I felt rejected when they did this, and now I'm mad. But we focus on the mad and we focus on what they did wrong. But if instead we'll focus on what is the emotion I'm feeling, then that could help us learn about ourselves. That could help us learn about ourselves. Why do I feel rejected when somebody doesn't return my text? Why do I feel shame when somebody honks a horn at me? Why? So if we could focus on the emotion that's triggering the anger, then God can use that to help us understand ourselves and help us to better ourselves. Welcome, Lorraine and Annabelle. Welcome, Lorraine and Annabelle. All right. Let's see, any thoughts on that? Any thoughts on that?
question. I'm going through this because I found myself being angry this week, but there was a lot of different variables. But one of the things at work, you know, we've been doing this big project. You put out this email that says, these are the steps you take, this is what you do, and then you get 50 emails back saying, hey, this came up and I need this password. Well, I just put it in the email. I bolded it, I underlined it, I just went through this whole thing. And I was looking through that list, I'm like, where, is it resentment maybe that they're not reading, or it's like, look, I gave you the information, stop. You know, I don't need 150 people asking you this question, that's why I sent you the text. So I'm like, what is that emotion that's behind it? Besides losing my cat and going to a funeral, and so there's been a whole, you know, grief, and so I looked at part of that, but I didn't know, I can't pinpoint that one emotion behind the work thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one, it could be, you know, they're wasting your time. It's like, or I mean, it could be, you know, because you put some thought into the potential question, but then they asked it. So it's like and so it's kind of, you maybe feel like, well, it's as if I didn't think of that, but I did think of it. And so, but you missed it.
Maybe it's a resentment that they're.
Yeah, resentment.
It's like, you just read the email or check the right box, or, you know, because I guess this is kind of a recurring theme. So maybe it's a resentment thing with people at work. It's like, just do your job. Just read the stuff. It's all right there.
Well, I think that sounds more like frustration.
Yeah.
Because there is a difference between anger and frustration. Some frustration can lead to anger, but I think in your case, it sounds like you were just disappointed that they didn't really read their email really well, so you just grew frustrated over it, you know?
Yeah, I think the frustration was turning to anger, and I had to really watch it. And you know, like I told one of my coworkers, I said, look, I'm really gonna try to not be short-tempered or whatever, and so forgive me if I do this week, because, you know, especially the cat, dealing with the cat losing my cat. And then yesterday, my mind was just all over the place. I'm like, I'm feeling really angry, but why? Okay, because of the cat, because of the, like you said, the frustration, since I couldn't pinpoint the word yesterday. Because of this, so there was a whole lot of different variables to it, and I was trying not to act out the anger in a way that would be sin, but it was difficult.
Yeah, and it's and I guess
Frustration. Okay, go ahead, Michael. I didn't mean to.
Oh no. Go ahead. Yeah. So sometimes and we'll get more to this in the next lesson. Yeah, you can have it stacked up. Like something can start you to get angry, and now you're kind of angry, and then something else happens, and so puts you in a volatile state. And so, like the slightest thing, you know, it kind of builds up. So something that normally wouldn't make you angry now made you angry because of this other thing that happened. And
but
so,
I didn't want to stuff it. Like I normally do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, don't stuff it. Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be resentment. It was frustration. It was either frustration or anger or so forth. So I wasn't. Yeah, and I have this one video on resentment. I took it out of the lesson, but I guess I'll add it in since you asked that question. I'm not sure if I 100% agree with it, but it was I'll play it.
So I thought resentment was from the anger family, right? Because when we're resentful, we seem kind of bitter and angry. So I'm doing a podcast interview with Mark Rackett, who heads up an emotions research center at Yale. And we're getting ready to go on like the air live. And I say, hey, let me ask you just a quick personal question for my own therapy. Resentment is in the anger family, right? And he goes, no, Resentment's a function of envy. And it completely completely changed my life. Because now, instead of looking at someone and saying, hey, look, I'm working 60 hours a week. Why aren't, I'm so resentful. Why aren't you? I'm thinking, oh, they're taking the weekend off. I'm not mad because you're not working. I'm mad because I'm not taking the weekend off. I'm not mad because there's stuff, well, I'm a little bit mad about the sink and the counter, but I'm mad because why can't I enjoy myself in my house if everything's not perfect? And so there's a knife up against my throat, but I'm holding it.
So yeah, resentment's in the anger family. I mean, in the envy family. I don't know if that's 100%. If I 100% agree with that, or all the time. I think it may depend on the instance. But yeah. So that's that. All right. So now we'll go to 3 categories of expressing anger. So we started it last week and we'll continue it now. 3 categories of expressing anger. Let's see. Peter, you had Ephesians 4:15.
Yes, I do. Ephesians 4:15. Let me read that. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. Let me try to read a different version. Sometimes it just makes it kind of fun. Give me a couple of seconds here. Let me take a look. Okay, it ties 15 and 16 together. He says, instead, we will lovingly follow the truth at all times, speaking truly, dealing truly, living truly, and so become more and more in every way like Christ, who is the head of the body, the church. Under his direction, the whole body is fitted together perfectly, and each part in its own special way helps other parts so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love.
All right. What was that? The Message or Amplify?
That's the Living Bible.
Living? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
One of them.
but it ties 15 and 16 together.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we want to speak the truth in love. So that's kind of a measure of how you're handling your anger. So we're looking at 3 categories of anger. One response to anger is the exploder or the spewing. Another response is stuffing or repressing it. And another response is indirectly or leaking it. And so you ask which of those 3 is speaking the truth in love, and it's actually none of them. So the exploder or the spewer, they're yelling at you, maybe cursing at you, so it's definitely not in love, but they are speaking the truth. The stuffer doesn't speak the truth at all, so they're not speaking the truth in love. The leaker, they speak about something else, maybe sarcastically or something. They don't speak the truth either. They don't directly speak the truth, and it's not in love. So our goal is to speak the truth in love, And so we're looking at these 3 responses, 3 categories of response to anger. And so the first one we looked at was the exploder. We looked at that last week. The exploder or the spewer. And when they get angry, they yell, they scream, they fight, they hit, they intimidate, they show aggression. They're overly opinionated, they're bold, they're blunt, they're forceful, they lack tact, they are demanding, and they're often repetitive when they're complaining. Their view is that, and so all of these traits and results and motivations and things, they're not necessarily going to be 100% for everybody, but you can get a good idea of where you fit in there. And so their view of anger is that anger is necessary. They've embraced that anger is a part of life, conflict is necessary, and they're okay with that. The results they get from anger is it gives them a sense of power, It helps them relieve pent-up emotions. It distracts them from the hurt. It distracts them from the hurtful emotion. But sometimes they may get a feeling of guilt after they explode. They've experienced a loss of control, and they may have regret afterwards. They'll often have poor impulse control, and it'll impact their relationships. So the people around them will learn to walk on eggshells and maybe even learn not to tell them the truth because they don't want them to blow up. So they may hide the truth from them. So they wound themselves and others with their words. They have strained, unhealthy relationships, and they can create dysfunction. So that was the exploder that we looked at last week. And so today, we talked about some solution, but today we'll look at 5 anger management strategies that they can do. So I guess first, any comments on the exploder?
I know a few of those.
Oh, I know quite a few. That's yeah. I seen they attract exploders. So here's some strategies that you can do as an exploder to manage your anger. The first is to not be attached to your ideas. Not be attached to your ideas. So if you're attached to your idea, then someone disagrees with you, you're going to be upset. You know, how can you disagree with who I am? It's like I have this idea, I have this belief, and I'm just completely attached to it. It's part of my identity. So if someone disagrees with it, I feel like they're disagreeing with me. I feel like they're disagreeing with who I am. And so we saw that in 2020. People were, everybody was so sensitive. If you disagree with their political view, if you disagree with their stance on the vaccine, their stance on the mask, or if you disagree with the stance on homosexuality or abortion or eating meat or police brutality or taking a knee during a football game, some people will just explode and they get upset and they get angry at you because it's like you're attacking them. If you disagree with their stance on that, then they feel attached to their idea. So the first solution would be, don't be attached to your idea. You have an idea, you have an opinion, you have a belief, but it's not you. Someone disagrees with it, they're not disagreeing with you, they're disagreeing with that idea. So the first solution is to not be so attached to that idea. If someone disagrees with that idea, then you don't need to get angry about it. You can disagree with them still, but you don't have to get angry. They disagree with that idea, but why does that make you angry? Why are you angry because they disagree with your view on that? Well, why should that make you angry? It's just, a political belief. It's just a stance on it, so why should that make you angry? So the first solution is don't be attached to your idea. Second solution is not to take it personally. Not to take it personally. So if someone does something or says something, if someone yells something out to you in traffic, they don't know you. So it's not specifically about you. It's not personal. It's not about you personally. So it's something wrong with them. So if someone, blows up with you and they don't know you, it's probably something wrong with them. So don't take it personally. They have an issue, so you shouldn't take it personal. You shouldn't take it personal. It's not about you. It's about them. It's not about you. It's about them. So don't take it personal. And I know, that can be harder at times than others, but because sometimes it may be related to some aspect of you, but still, if you it's more about them than about you. Like just this weekend, I was walking back home in my neighborhood down the street, got out of an Uber, so I had my mask on, and I'm walking down the street, and there's a woman walking towards me at night, and she sees me, and she turns around and goes the other way. I could have took it personally, said anything, or I could have just said, well, it's not about me, it's about her. So don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Number 3, learn when to let things go. Learn when to let things go. So number 3 way to handle anger is to learn when to let things go. So, if someone disagrees with something about you, let it go. Just let it go. If it's not something that is important, learn how to let it go. Welcome, Silva. So we're talking about ways to manage getting angry for an exploder. So learning how to let things go. Someone doesn't squeeze a toothpaste the same way you squeeze a toothpaste. Just be okay with it. Let it go. Let it go. It's not important. If it's not, so a lot of times people will get upset because someone does something different than they do. That's one of the important things to learn, in a relationship. Just because somebody does something different than you doesn't make it wrong. They do something differently than you doesn't make it wrong. They put their clothes away differently, fold their clothes, they close the cabinet doors different. They do put on the toilet paper roll different. Just because it's different than you do it, don't make it wrong. So let things go. If it's not important, just learn to let it go. That's the 3rd way. So the first was don't be attached to your ideas. Don't take things personally. And the 4th is similar to what we brought about or talked about. Angel was talking about being aware of what's going on in your body. Being aware of what's going on in your body. So you may have something that's making you prone to be angry. So there's a word halt. 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 Are you hungry? You get hangry. Some people get angry when they're hungry. Halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Are you lonely? Are you tired? That can make you angry. So are you stressed? Are you hot? Is it that time of the month? So realize what's going on with your body and realize that might be making you more prone to be angry than just the situation at hand. So there may be something going on that's making you more prone to be angry. And so sometimes they feel a certain way, and then they'll conclude, oh, I must be angry about this. It's like, I feel agitated, so I must be upset about this. But it's like just something going on within them, and so they assume, okay, I must be angry. And so you want to think yourself, okay, if it wasn't so hot today, would this make me angry? If I wasn't so hungry, would this make me angry? If I didn't have the funeral earlier today, would this make me angry? So ask yourself, try to become aware of what's going on in you, what's going on around you. Think of that's another way. Let's see, any comments so far on these anger management techniques?
Michael, I find that for me, I have to really prepare myself before any situation, Like today, I went to the post office, and there's this minivan. There's only one space, and I need to get in. But this minivan parked as though they own the 2 spaces. Okay? And I had a 15-pound backpack on me, and I didn't want to park like 3 blocks away just to go to the post office.
Right.
And so I squeezed in. I got out on time. The van was still the way it is, and the person sitting in there. So I kind of tapped on the window and just kind of lifted my hand up, like both of my hands, like, dude, what are you doing? I can't get in, can't get out. So he just kind of looked at me like, on his driver's side, he had more than enough space, but I parked on his passenger side, and I barely could even open the door, And so, yeah, to go through these remedies of solution, I really have to prepare myself because you don't know what happens, in life with things like that popping up. But yeah, I kind of lost a little bit, not a lot,
Mm.
So I drove away, but I wasn't very happy,
Mm.
and that's it.
Oh, you drove after you went into the post office?
Yeah, after I came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't too happy with that guy.
Oh,
That
yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah. When someone's yeah, you feel like they're making your life harder.
Well, they take
For
up
no
two
reason.
Spaces, we only
Yeah.
got like one. It's only, I mean, your minivan is not that big. There's no reason why you should take up two spaces.
Right. So you felt he was inconsiderate. He was inconsiderate of other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't very happy with that. So for me to practice these solutions, I almost gotta like prepare myself every day.
Mm.
Otherwise, it'll catch you out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then it can any other thoughts? Okay, welcome, Patrice. And so that one, so I said, be aware of what's going on. It may be that it's hot, this maybe the stress, it may be that you're hungry, that's making you angry. And then the next step is to learn how to express that. Learn to express that. So you can say, it's not a good time for me to talk right now. I'm really hungry. Or say, I'm feeling agitated right now. It's probably more about me than it is about you. So first identifying what's going on in your body and then being able to express that is the goal we want to achieve. All right. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts on that? Okay. So now we'll go to the second way to express anger is the stuffer. The stuffer. The stuffer represses their anger. They suppress it. They deny it. And so I'm a stuffer. Their view on anger, but I don't. Yeah. Well, anyway. Their view on anger is that anger is bad or sinful, or that conflict is bad. Their view is that conflict is bad. So they think that, you should try to avoid conflict at all costs. Try to avoid conflicts at all costs because conflict is a bad thing. So they express anger by ignoring it, denying it, minimizing it, pretend they aren't really angry, avoiding it, burying it, or feeling shame. And so what motivates them is that they fear loss of control or making a fool of themselves. They fear rejection of others. They don't like to feel guilty. Their experience of anger has scars in it. They fear retaliation or punishment or consequences from being angry. And so I was kind of questioning that list. I was like, I don't know. So I added another one that'll come up. And the result of their response to anger is that they become a doormat, or that people take advantage of them. They become angry at themselves. They can get physical ailments, ulcers, tension headaches, muscle cramps. So I found out, last year I have an ulcer. They avoid people, places, things. They withdraw, but they are resentful. They have resentment. They resent people for what they did, and occasionally they'll erupt. So they may blow up. They may blow up from time to time. They stuff it in, and then at some point they may erupt. Another motivation could be that they don't always necessarily get angry. So it's not always that they're stuffing the anger. They just genuinely may not get angry. So something could happen that everybody else would be infuriated about, but a stuffer may not actually get angry. They may not get angry at the moment. But but then it may be later when they think about it that they'll get angry. Where, I've heard exploders say, oh, well, if you were really angry about it, you would have said something at the time. But so that's why, these things are interesting, because it's kind of hard to view the world from somebody else's perspective. So from one perspective, it's like, if I was angry about it, I would have said something. I would have reacted then. I would have got angry then. Whereas this person is coming back a week later and they're angry. So they weren't really angry about it. But it's just a different perspective on the world. So like a stuffer may have to think about it first, and then realize, oh man, I can't believe they did that. And then they'll be resentful of the person, even though at the time they weren't necessarily angry. They may not have been angry at the time. And so they will agree or disagree with something and feel resentment towards the person later. So it can be delayed. Welcome, Pearl. So it can be delayed. Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay. So any thoughts on that, the stuffer? So we're going to talk about some solutions.
I identify with the stuffer.
Okay.
My sister is the one that really calls me out on it. Like, why you just didn't say something then, But my reaction comes later.
Yeah.
And sometimes I try to figure out, is this justified anger? Like, it's hard to, I try to understand it, but it does build resentments, and holding on to those for too long is where the anger builds up, so, but I'm just not that person that's going to like react so quickly all the time.
Yeah.
So it does take me some time to process it, and then the anger might come later, and then people don't understand, like, but this is how I operate.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with me. It's like, yeah, I may get angry about it later on. It's like have to think about it. Have to think about how I feel about it. Whereas exploders, they know how they feel instantly about it, but yeah. So some solutions for stuffers are to accept the fact that anger and conflict is actually okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to have conflict. Acknowledge your fears. Learn to communicate your anger effectively. We have to be more assertive with our needs and our wants. Have to be clear about what we want, what we don't want, what we will do, and what we won't do. Communicate that and be clear about it. We have to better understand our feelings, to identify what the underlying emotion was, and then to become comfortable saying no. Become comfortable saying no. And so here are 10 questions that will let you know if you're a stuffer. So if you answer yes to 5 or 6 of them, then you're probably a stuffer. So you stuff your anger. You repress your anger. You don't express it. You stuff it in. So number 1 is, I am very image conscious. I do not like to let others know when I have a problem. So that's all part of number 1. Number 2 is, when I'm flustered, I portray myself publicly as having it all together. Number 3 says, I'm rather reserved about sharing my problems and my frustrations. Number 4 is, if a family member or a friend upsets me, I can let days pass before bringing it up or mentioning it. Number 5 is, I have a tendency to be depressed and moody. Number 6 is, resentful thinking is common to me, although many people would never suspect it. Number 7 is, I have suffered from physical symptoms, stomach ailments, sleep irregularity, headaches, or ulcers. Number 8, there are times when I wonder if my opinion or preferences are really valued. Number 9, sometimes I feel paralyzed when confronted with an unwanted situation. Number 10 says, I feel guilty a lot about little things, especially if someone's upset with me. So if you answer yes to 5 of those, 6 of those, then you're probably a stuffer. So a stuffer is someone who suppresses their anger and holds it in. And, all right, so any thoughts? Any thoughts on the stuffer? Comments or questions?
I got all 6.
All 6 or all 10?
Well, 6 out of it. Sorry, I had 6 out of 10. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can we have half? It's like,
Half?
okay, well, I give myself a half on that one. So 4.5.
Oh, okay. 4.5. Oh, okay. No, there's no halves. If you're wondering about it, then
Then count it. Okay.
that's what who was it? Chip Ingram. He was like if you're wondering maybe, then that's a yes.
Am I a stuffer or am I just stuffed? Right now, I think I'm just stuffed. I ate too much for dinner. But okay, thank you.
Okay, or you could be the next one. We got another one. And I will quickly reread the questions for the exploder that we went over last lesson. The exploder, 10 questions to let you know if the exploder says, I can be blunt and forceful when someone does something to frustrate me. Number 2, as I speak my convictions, my voice becomes increasingly louder. Number 3, when someone confronts me with a problem, I'm likely to offer a ready rebuttal. Number 4, no one has to guess my opinion. I am known for having unwavering viewpoints. Number 5, when something goes wrong, I focus so sharply on fixing the problem that I often overlook people's feelings. Number 6, I have a history of getting caught in bickering matches with family members. Number 7, during verbal disagreements with someone, I tend to repeat myself several times. Number 8, I find it hard to keep my thoughts to myself when I know something is wrong. Number 9, I have a reputation of being strong-willed. And number 10, I tend to give advice even when others haven't asked for it. So those were the 10 exploder questions. All right. Any thoughts?
Hey, Michael, my name is all over that. This is Silver.
The exploder? Oh, yeah.
Man, I feel like I just got caught. This is wrong, man. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Wow.
All right. Were you going to say something, Annabelle? No.
I was going to say that I think my husband's the exploder and I'm the stuffer. So I guess opposites attract. So that we get along.
Yeah. All right. All right. So the last one is a leaker. So someone may think they're a stuffer, but they actually be a leaker. So leaker is indirect. They indirectly express anger. So they express it, but they don't express it in a way where they necessarily let you know they're angry. So the way they express anger is maybe they don't follow through on their commitments, not letting their yes be yes or their no be no. They may make excuses or procrastinate, or they may knowingly go at a pace that they know is annoying to others. So they may do something slow, knowing that it annoys people, or they may become critical or negative, or maybe they'll make sarcastic comments, or they may become isolated. So if you're driving on the freeway in the fast lane and a car comes up behind you, you know, I've seen some cars that will, when they get angry that the car is coming up behind them, I've seen one car change lanes and then get behind that car and start putting on the head high beams and honking at that car. So that was an exploder. You know, a stuffer may just move out of the way. An indirect person may slow down when the car is in front of them. All right, so the indirect person, their view of anger is that showing anger is bad. So they think being angry is okay, but showing it is bad. Showing anger is bad. And the reason is that, the reason that they think so is because they think it's bad to be angry. They fear God's wrath, or maybe they fear lack of control, or they fear rejection, or they feel guilty when they get angry, or maybe they had a scary experience with someone who got angry, or they sense that they may have retaliation or punishment or consequences if they get angry. So some solutions for the, actually let me put the solutions at the end. Okay. All right, so one solution is to decide to tell the truth. Tell the truth. So tell the truth in love is the solution to all of these, but decide to tell the truth. So don't tell white lies to placate the feelings of others or avoid conflict. So that means if someone's irritating you, you can't ignore it. If you make a commitment to, I'm going to tell the truth, I'm going to tell the truth. Same with the stuffer. It's like if you make a commitment to come to the truth, then you have to address your situations. And then also if you address it, a lot of times indirects, they'll assume that they're right. They'll assume the other person's wrong and they're right, or stuffers, but they won't ever address it, so they'll never get the other person's side of it. They'll just assume they're right, but never get the other person's side of it. And so you must say to yourself, I'm irritated about this, and I need to think through whether you have a problem or I have a problem. Is a way you can address it. All right, so 10 questions to let you know if you're an indirect anger expresser. When I'm frustrated, I become silent, knowing it bothers people. Number 2, I am prone to sulk and pout. Number 3, when I don't want to do a project, I procrastinate. I can be lazy. Number 4, when someone asks me if I'm frustrated, I'll lie. I say, no, everything's fine. Number 5, there are times when I'm deliberately evasive so others don't bother me. Number 6, I sometimes approach work projects half-heartedly. Number 7, when someone talks to me about their problems, I stare straight ahead deliberately, obstinately. Number 8, I'm often sarcastic and hide my true hurt behind jokes. Number 9, I withdraw affection and become sexually frigid when I am hurt. Number 10, I forget to do things for people who have wounded me. So if you can answer 5 or 6 of those yes, then you're indirect. And so we can be in one situation an indirect and another situation an exploder. So it could be depending on the situation. So maybe you explode at home, but you don't explode at work. So some solutions to those who are indirect. Well, any thoughts? Any thoughts on that? On the indirect? Anybody relate? Anybody know people like that?
Oh yeah, I do. I mean, the indirect anger is everything else is going wrong. They're upset, but they're just not saying it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost a little dangerous because they just don't really see it, or at least they're pretending. But I feel like when I do the indirect, it's just like, snarky comments. You ask them, are they okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. And it's like, you don't look fine and you're not acting fine. There's something else going on, But it could be a little scary to me because you're trying to get it out of them, but then that's when you think they're going to explode,
Yeah.
So it's fragile. You gotta I feel like you gotta walk on the eggshells around that person,
Yeah, or they'll make a snide comment or sarcastic, Oh, you should have done such and such. Like, wait, what? Patrice.
Hey, you said something a couple minutes ago. I just want to clarify, get clarification on it. It was something about if you explode at home, you can't explode at work, or like you have to explode in both places. You're not able to do one or the other. I don't know. I got confused. What did you say?
Oh no, I was saying the opposite. That some people may be an exploder at work, but a stuffer at home, or a stuffer at work, but an exploder at home, or indirect at home and a stuffer at work. So it may depend on who you're interacting with. You may show differently.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Oh, you're welcome. Let's see. Some solutions for the indirects are similar to stuffers. Accept that anger is okay and common. Acknowledge your fear and seek to minimize the influence of your fear. Learn to communicate your anger effectively. Become more assertive with your wants and your needs. Become clear about what you will and what you won't do. So those are for stuffer. But yeah, so it's like, but you can be one way in one place or another. And I remember I was working at this state organization, and there was one lady there. She was just always really nice and just sweet. And she was like always amiable. She would just agree with, she would, always avoid conflict. Oh no, that's not. And she spoke, really high voice, and she was just always agreeable and was always friendly and happy and just, if there was any issue, she would just, she would just secede to whatever anybody else was saying. She wouldn't argue with anybody or anything. But then once I heard her, I guess her husband called her, and she was in the office, and I heard her. She was like, "Well, you better such and such and such and such." And she was like a complete exploder with him, and it was like really weird. She was yelling, like she's always like was really soft spoken and quiet in the office, but it was like heard her, in the office yelling and everything, and it was like, whoa, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But yeah, a lot of people at work, especially if you're not the boss, then they don't feel, they don't want to get fired, so they don't explode. But when they get home, but one of these is your true personality. So it's usually around the people you're more comfortable with is your true personality, is your true way that you express your anger, how you do it around the people you're comfortable with. Likely your family or the person you're in a relationship with. Any thoughts?
Hey, Michael, how do you work around with people like those?
How do you work around them?
Yeah, because you can't be honest with them. They're not really into advice, but you don't want to be singled out because they have a psychological issue,
A psychological issue. Well, I mean, we all have, I guess, a psychological issue if we're in any of these categories. But how do you? I guess it depends on the scenario. Are you saying when you think that they're angry, or just?
No, I mean, let's say you work with 5 people on your group, or on your cubicle, or whatever, or on your sales floor, and a couple of them are like that. Either they're stuffers or they're explosive. I mean, it makes the environment very difficult to work with. You almost gotta lie on everything because they're like they need medication. That's what they need besides therapy. Because those kind of people are very hard to work with. I used to work with a bunch like that. It was very difficult to work with them.
So difficult? Why would it be difficult? Because why would it be difficult? They didn't do the work, or they're
explosive.
Oh, you're saying exploders?
Oh, exploders, stuffers. I mean, they go to work and they really let it out at times.
Well, stuffers don't really let it out.
They don't. They do it very passively.
Oh, indirects. Oh, you're saying like
Yeah.
passive aggressive. So I mean, I guess if the issue is when they're expressing the anger, so you're saying how do you deal with when they're expressing anger?
Yeah, just in general. I mean, so far
Yeah.
all these are good remedies, but when you put into application, it's a whole different thing, right?
Yeah, well, the remedies here were for ourselves. So how do you deal with other people doing it? Yeah, I guess well, speak the truth in love is the foundation of it, but I guess it's sort of situational. I guess it kind of depends on why they're angry. Are they angry at you because something that that they think you should be doing and they're doing it? Or, so I think it depends on why they're angry.
I see at my previous work, they pick out victims. I've seen that, and those people after they got let out, then all of a sudden they feel very good and they'll say, "Hey, you guys have a good evening tonight, right?" Meanwhile, everybody's like bubbling and they're ready to go home, and they're like, "Gosh, I don't want to work here anymore."
Mm.
It's real hard because they pick their own victims out.
Oh, they explode on a certain person.
They find things. There's something wrong with them,
Maybe it address that or tell them that if you feel like that they're exploding, that they're not angry at that specific instance, that they just have to let it out at somebody. I mean, maybe communicate that to them, that it seems that way, that you can't really be that mad at this issue. It seems like you just
Michael, this is Silva. I think what you guys are talking about is almost like when you send your child to school. You just don't know. It's just about humans being complicated. You send your little boy to school, your little girl to school, and they come home tell you all these characters, and you can't do nothing about it. But over time, when you advise them to try to learn each person, people are complex. So I think it's just one of those things that you have to use that wisdom to try to analyze everybody. Some of them, they want to play with them. Some of them want to play with you, like kids. They say they don't want to play. They don't want to share their toys. But when my kids were little, you go to the playground, they don't want to play with some kids. But I try to put them out there because I can't go and solve their problem there. So I think it carries on to adulthood. The same personalities are still there. Anytime you find people, even if you go to a game, there's always people that are going to be trying to start some trouble. So it's about how you learn how to carry yourself. They're not going to mess with you as long as you don't participate in their jokes and other things. So it's one of those things that you meet people, you have to use that wisdom to figure out, is this person the kind of person I can deal with? So once you make that decision, then you don't have to even expose yourself. They would be wondering what you're thinking, but they will never know. You just avoid them. And when you do not respond to them, they know that you're not interested in them. So I'm thinking that the same thing at work. You have different characters to meet. Even at church group, people are complicated. You just have to use whatever you've been using all these years growing up, that little radar that you have to get through to them. You don't allow people to abuse you. If you see them trying to do it, you avoid them. Over time, they will just leave you alone. There's no way to, you also mentioned that people can be two different things, two different people. For me, I can be nice, very nice with people. That's the first thing I do. But I don't allow people to abuse me. If they want to abuse me, the solution that I've learned that works is to mirror them. When you refuse to be abused, they will back off. And years ago when I got married, being from overseas, from Africa, where, pretty much, domestic violence is like something you expect. The guys feel like they can, beat their wife if they wanted to, just like a child. But my biggest shock was when I came here, I met someone from here, And one of the things they ask me is that they know that in Africa that you guys have seen people beat their wives. But I'm going to tell you, if you ever put your hands on me, that's going to be a divorce. So that kind of stuck in my head. So when you tell people what you can take and what you cannot take, they have to make that decision. So in a relationship, the same thing. You tell someone, if you talk to me this way, I will not want to deal with you. They will respect it. But the thing is that we don't ask people, we don't draw that lines. We don't tell them that this is all I can take. So if you let the person know, from my experience, I don't accept abuse. Don't do it. If you do it, I'm not going to accept it. And that for me, that shuts it up for me. As long as the person tells me that this is what they don't want, I have to remember to respect them with it. But when they don't tell you, sometimes you're doing it not because you want to abuse them. It becomes like a norm for you, that you are assuming that they accept it. So in the case of the at work with your coworkers, I would tell the person that that's not my style. If you don't interact with them, they will back off. You don't have to run from them. They're afraid of you the same way you're afraid of them. But you have to let them know where you stand. So that's what I wanted to say about this.
Okay.
Yeah, just making that point clear that you are not going to allow the person to abuse you. And once they understand it, they will back up. Even bullies, they leave you alone.
Yeah, communicate your boundaries.
Yes, very important.
Patrice, you had your hand up?
Yeah, someone mentioned earlier, like, how do you deal with, like, people who have a different anger style? And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so how do you deal with a different anger style? And I think it's what we're doing now. We're learning about the style that we have, like our own style, and then we just need to learn about the other types of styles and maybe just understand people a little bit more and have compassion. And I don't know, it kind of reminds me of those like 4 temperaments and just, I don't know, love languages and stuff like that. Educating ourselves more. Because we have our own biases that we're dealing with in ourselves, right? Things that we learn from whatever family or environment or society. And so we just need to try to be more compassionate to people, especially those we don't know. And if we don't understand something, just seek to learn it like we're doing with this Bible study. So thank you for conducting it. Oh,
you're welcome. Yeah, I think understanding them. Yeah, if someone's bullying and lashing out, I mean, it's they're hurting. They're hurting. It means they're hurting in some way for some reason. So, but yeah, I guess avoiding them. I mean, and if it's as bad as you say, then everyone's experiencing it. Then, you could also go to your manager, go to the manager, and it's the manager's responsibility. If they're if it's impacting everybody, then everyone knows about it, then you can go to your manager about it as well. If it's not a situation where you're the only one bothered by it, if it's that bad, then everyone will be bothered by it. All right, let's see. All right, so now we're going to talk about the causes of anger. Talk about a couple of things that make you angry. So first I'll go through a list. I got a few lists today. List of 40 common things that make people angry. So think about if any of these things have ever made you angry. If any of these things ever made you angry. Someone cut you in line. Someone misunderstood what you said. Someone ignored your feelings. Someone broke up with you in a relationship. Someone made you feel trapped or smothered. Someone was controlling. You felt like a failure. Someone broke your trust. Past abuse or trauma. Someone lied to you. You had to wait in a long line at the grocery store or the bank or the DMV. Your children aren't obeying you. Has that made you mad? The waitress is slow bringing out your food, or he or she brings out the wrong dish. You stub your toe. You ran out of toilet paper. A very long line in the bathroom. Has that ever made you mad? Your spouse or your mate forgot to call. Your mate was late getting home. Your spouse was late getting home. The clothes you wanted to wear were dirty. Your mate had an affair. You didn't get the things done today that you wanted to get done. You drove across town to find out that the store was actually closed. The kids wanted some of your time. You forgot to do something. You did something that at work that made you look bad. Has that ever made you angry? You don't have any time for yourself. The clerk was rude to you. You keep getting red lights. You're in a hurry to get somewhere and you just keep getting red lights. Has that ever made you angry? The boss doesn't appreciate you. Someone at work takes credit for what you did. Somebody tracks dirt into your clean house. The driver in front of you is going too slow. Someone you love dies. Someone gave you advice that you didn't ask for. You were treated unfairly. Someone blames you for something. It wasn't your fault. Someone belittled you. Someone criticized you. Someone made an angry gesture at you in traffic. Or someone honks at you when you're at a green light. So I'm sure we've all been mad at multiple of those things. And so I'm going to talk about two of the reasons we get mad. One is that it's emotional hurt. It's an emotional hurt. So emotional hurt when you have unmet needs. So you have needs, your needs weren't met. So maybe you didn't get the attention you deserve, the recognition you deserve, the praise you deserve, the reward you deserve, the appreciation you deserve, the apology you deserve. Somebody owes you an apology. They wouldn't give you the apology or the respect you deserve. Someone's disrespecting you. And so you become emotionally hurt. You become emotionally hurt. So we've all been through that. We felt hurt. We felt angry because, somebody didn't do one of those things. And so one way to deal with it is to communicate using I feel messages, especially if it's like in a relationship. Someone you want to continue a relationship. Someone steps in front of your line, you don't necessarily have to do this if it's a stranger and you'll never see them again. But if it's someone you want to continue the relationship with, then you want to learn to communicate your feelings. I need to learn. Yeah, that's something I'm working on, learning to communicate my feelings, because if you don't communicate it and you just store it up, then you just get resentful. And every time you get angry at them, you just pile up the resentment because you didn't communicate it. So you can learn to say, I feel blank when you blank. So I feel angry, or I feel hurt, or I feel disappointed when you do this. I feel hurt when you pay more attention to the kids than me. I feel hurt when you give more energy to work than you do to me. I feel disappointed when you forget our anniversary. I feel rejected when I want to draw close to you physically and you give me the cold shoulder. I feel afraid or belittled when you shout and raise your voice. I feel left out when you call a meeting with the supervisors, but you don't include me. I feel hurt when you don't share with me what you share with other people. I feel kind of rejected when I text you or call you and I don't hear back from you for a couple of days. So that's how we can learn to communicate it. I feel this when you do that. I feel this. So you're not saying you always, you never, We're saying I feel this when you do that. And so that's not really something that you can argue with. This is how I feel when you do that. So when you express that, and the person has, they may get defensive and argue about it, but now they know, and they can choose to change or not. And then taking it to the next level would be, I feel this when you do that. I wish. So I feel disappointed when you didn't trust me with that information. I wish you could tell me. I wish we could talk calmly about our schedules. So the first one is emotional hurt, unmet needs. Any thoughts on that? Anybody practice that? Patrice?
So it's neat that you're bringing this up because it's taken me years to realize that I grew up pretty neglected. My parents were super busy, like getting involved in abusive relationships and stuff like that, with each other, with other people, and I had to see a lot of stupid stuff growing up. But like, yeah, I didn't even realize that I was neglected. I was a pretty good student. I was really focused. I didn't really get into any trouble growing up. They had like a really easy kid, right? But they didn't really appreciate it. And then it's only in the last, like, let's say, I don't know, 10 to 15 to 20 years that I realized, oh man, no, not even, like 10 years. I was like, oh, I was neglected as a kid. Because you don't really think about that stuff. Like in my family, nobody really talks about things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up like not realizing it, maybe feeling it, but not understanding what it was. So as I gained more knowledge and, more wisdom, I realized, oh man, I was neglected growing up. And so it's no wonder I'm not close to my parents, right? I don't have a close relationship with either of them. And it made me more determined. I have a child, so it made me more determined to try to be the best parent I could be to her. And like I didn't grow up learning to say sorry. So actually that's a big thing for me now is apologies. And I noticed you were saying that in the discussion. And it took me a long time to like even apologize to my daughter for things. It's really hard when you don't grow up learning how to do that stuff, at least for me. And so it took a lot of practice, and now I'm pretty good at it. But it took time, and I wanted to be a good example to my daughter. So just going back to what you were saying about stuff, I just realized that I was neglected, and because of the neglect, I think that's why I'm someone that like seeks approval. And for me, it's really important to get credit because I work really hard. I'm a workhorse. I work really hard at things I do, whether it's at work or whatever organizations I'm involved with, events that I'm part of. And I kind of need that recognition, probably because of the neglect. But I never thought of it like that. I didn't realize that was the reason why until you were speaking about it a few minutes ago. So, thank you.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, a lot of us grew up with missing something, and it either can make you real sensitive of not getting it, or you can be the opposite where you just don't expect it and it becomes normal to you, and so you sort of seek out people who don't feel that need, and so it can we have different responses to it. But not feeling appreciated, and a lot of times we won't tell people that we don't, when they don't thank you, or when they're doing something, we don't feel appreciated. But so that's definitely I need to learn to communicate my needs. So I guess first step is like you understanding what our needs are. We know we're frustrated, but the first step is identifying, okay, what is it that I'm really mad about? What is it that I'm really angry about? And then being able to communicate it so others can at least have the chance. You'll find out who will and who won't. Some people will blow it off and will say, that's, and other people will, either change or me, but at least they know. At least they know, and at least you've expressed it. So that's something I'm working on, learning to express my wants, needs, and desires, and not just being resentful of people for not feeling them, assuming that they know. Any other thoughts?
Sorry, Michael, real quick. I'm glad that you said that. A lot of people, I think, assume that people know what their love language is, and people are usually expressing like the way they want you to treat them based on their own love language. So I think the first thing to learn is what your love language is, and then what the other party's love language is. So yeah, that's something that I've learned in the past, 5 to 15 years as well. But yeah, I know like I was treating other people like, well, this is the way that I assume respect is, or I assume love is, so that means they assume the same thing, which is not true.
Right.
They have their own way of dealing with stuff, their own way of feeling loved by someone. And so, yeah, I've just been learning about that in the past few years, which is cool. I wish I would have known it sooner, but at least I'm learning it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish all this stuff I've been studying for the past 4 or 5 years, I wish I had known it. I wish they had taught me this in school, how to deal with people.
Or how to say it, right? I think what you said earlier was a way of expressing it using a lot of the I statements. This is how I feel.
Right.
When you do this, it makes me feel this way. And that has helped me as well. I needed that tool because I too I'm not good at arguing, and confrontation is really hard for me because I was always afraid of what the other person's reaction might be. So it's like, if I say it this way, they're probably going to get upset or it's going to trigger them in some sort of way. Or I just didn't know how to express it coming from a place of how I'm feeling rather than coming across as attacking them, because I think in anger, it comes out as an attack.
Yeah.
Rather than what's really, just express what's really going on with you other than what's going on with them, And so using that tool with learning how to say, this is how I'm feeling, it takes a lot of practice, I will tell you that. But it's definitely been something that's been beneficial for me with expressing, how I'm feeling at that moment of anger.
Yeah, it takes a lot of practice, it takes courage. And yeah, especially being a stuffer, because it's like you don't say anything, but you don't say anything until it's, to the last straw that broke the camel's back. So when you are expressing it, it's a heated blow up. So your experience with expressing it has been bad because you only express it when it gets to the breaking point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had experiences with that. Was like, it's like they didn't know there was a problem until we broke up. Because I didn't. So yeah, I gotta learn to express it early. Not not in a confrontational way, but in love. Speak the truth in love. You don't want to just disrespectfully say it to someone or confrontationally, but speak the truth in love.
So Michael, thank you for not learning all this stuff until later in life, because now we have the benefit of this class and of your wisdom.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's true.
Because we didn't learn, well, I didn't learn it, I shouldn't speak for anybody else. I didn't, learn, I'm not learning this stuff until now or until the last few years, and this helps just bring it home a little bit more and gives us more ways of dealing with the things that we're going through. So your timing is good for us. So thank you for not learning all that stuff early so that you could teach us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I didn't. Yeah, and it's just, and especially guys generally tend not to want to learn relationship. We assume we know everything about our relationship. We say, the problems, the relationship books are pretty much mostly women buy. Guys just assume they know everything. They think the problem is always the other person. It's like, I know everything I need to know. No one can. So I'm glad that this is we have guys here too.
I remember reading a book, Michael, about, how you say, I felt hurt, I felt blah, blah, blah. And one book just says plain, when that happens, just say, ouch, ouch. You just hurt me, ouch. Because, yeah, it's so weird because we're, when we're kids, we'll say ouch. But as adults, we, like stuff it down or everything. But it says ouch. so that the other person knows. Sometimes that just helps.
Yeah, they'll know something was wrong. Yeah. Yeah, I never heard that. That's interesting. Yeah. All right. And then the second way we get angry is unmet expectations. So when we have frustration for real or perceived expectations. So there's a Bible story about Naaman. Naaman had leprosy, and he went to Elijah to cure him. He asked Elijah to cure him. And so we'll read that. Let's see, Kikwa. You have 2 Kings 5, 8 to 11.
Oh, it's 8 to 11?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 13 or 14. But they're both 2 Kings.
All right. So when Elijah the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message: "Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel?" So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, "Go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." But Naaman went away angry and said, "I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot, and cure me of my leprosy."
One more.
12. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and he went off in a rage.
All right. So Naaman had leprosy. He was told, "Hey, there's a prophet that can cure you." So he went to go see Elijah, and Elijah sent his messenger out to tell Naaman, "Go and wash in the river, and you'll be cured." And so Naaman was mad. He said, "Hey, I thought he was going to come out and wave his hand over me, and then I was going to get cured." And so he went away angry. So why was Naaman angry?
He thought that he was going to be cleansed.
He didn't want to do the work. He wanted
He
to
actually,
hurt him.
I think he thought that he was being disrespected. This guy couldn't even come out to see him. He feels really disrespected.
Yeah. So all of those. Yeah, he felt disrespected. So he had an expectation of what was going to happen when he went and saw the prophet.
Yes.
And that's not what happened. So yeah, he felt he could have been disrespected. Could have. So yeah. So his expectation. So he had an expectation, and his expectation wasn't met. So that's why we often get angry. Oftentimes we have an expectation of how things should go, and that's not how it goes. I'm thinking of like when I talked about I opened the car door and I hit the guy's door next to me, and I turned to him, and he's like, hey, what you doing? And I looked at, I didn't actually relate what he was talking about, so I looked at him confused, and he was like, "You dumped my car," but then I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But as soon as I said I'm sorry, then he calmed down. But if I had said, "Hey, what do you," if it goes different than what we expect, Peter, if the guy had said, "Oh, I'm really sorry for parking here, I'll do better next time." So if it goes different than what we expect, then we get angry. If it's different, if we have an expectation, if it doesn't go the way we expect it, then we can get angry. So whatever our expectation is, expectation of an event, expectation of a person, expectation in life, when our expectations aren't met, then we get angry. You have 2 Kings 5, 13 to 14. So then we'll see what happened.
So that was 13 then. So Naaman's servant went to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, wash and be cleansed. So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean, like that of a young boy.
All right. So, what Elijah told him to do work, he was just expecting there was going to be some grand, miraculous thing going on. Not just go dip in the river 7 times. So when we have an expectation, so that we have a difference between our expectation and reality. So when this is our expectation and this is reality, if there's a little difference, we get frustrated. If this is our expectation and this is reality, we get angry. So it depends. So if you went to work and they promised to pay you $100 and they pay you 99, you're gonna get frustrated. Man, I can't believe it. But if you go there and they promise to pay you $100 and they gave you 50, you're gonna be angry. You're gonna be angry. So the difference between what you expected and what you got determines how angry you are. Any thoughts?
Michael, this is Silva. I also feel like, those kind of experiences humbles you. It's sometimes a way to be humbled.
Mm.
When he dipped 7 times in that river and was healed, there has to be a way he was humbled by it.
Mm. Yeah.
Sometimes something good comes out of those kind of actions. When you make a mistake, when you thought you were smarter than everybody else, and then the smallest person in the room was right, it actually humbles you. Unless it's someone that doesn't have humility.
Exactly.
Which is,
exactly.
And
Yeah.
for me, when I get caught that way, it humbles me to where I'll have to change. That something good has to come out of it. So it just depends on who's dealing with it, who's involved in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it can humble you. So when you expect something to happen some way and it doesn't, but then the results are still there, then you realize, okay, my way isn't the only way. My way, so it can humble you to okay, maybe someone knows better than me, or maybe there's a way outside of my way. And so, and when we have these, my way is the only way, we use extreme words. So we have extreme words where we're demanding. So words like ought, you ought to do this, they ought to do that. Word like always, you always do this, you always do that. Words like never, you never do this, you never do that. Or words like should, they should have done this, they should have done that. So ought, always, never, and should, they're demand statements. They're extreme words, and extreme words draw out extreme feelings. If you think they should have done this, then you're probably mad when they didn't do it. Versus if you're saying they could have done this, you're probably not mad. So if you're using extreme words, you probably have extreme feelings associated with it. If they ought to do this, the president ought to do this, the president should do this, the president never does this, you're probably going to be angry when they do it. But because you're thinking, my way is the right way, this is the way to do it, and people ought to do it this way, people should do it that way. And we have expectations of other people, we have expectations of ourselves. We have expectations that maybe standards you set for yourself. I always come through for everyone. I never turn in a report late. I'm always neat and clean. My kids will always go to the great schools. So we have expectations for ourselves, and when those aren't met, we get angry. We have unmet life expectations from your family. You get expectations from your family that you come up with. Your culture gives you expectations. Maybe you think, having a family, or you expect it. Hey, when I get married, everything is going to be perfect. Then life is going to be perfect once I get married, or hey, once I get this level, then I have success, or having children. And so we have these expectations that we have, but then when these expectations don't get met, then we get mad, we get angry. We can be angry at life, we can be angry at ourselves, we can even be angry at God. See, so one way to combat that is using the statements I wish or I desire versus the demand statements. I wish that the economy was better and things go better on my job. I desire that my kids turn out well. I long to get married someday. I desire or I wish they're requests, they're not demands. So if we're demanding something, then we're going to be angry when we don't get it. If our desire isn't met, we're disappointed. If our demand isn't met, then we're angry. If our desire doesn't get met, then we're disappointed. But if our demand isn't met, then we're angry. So if we're desiring versus demanding. And then lastly, I'll talk about our expectations from God. So we may think, I prayed all the time. I tithed regularly. I went on mission trips. So God, how can you do this to me? How can you let this happen to me? We may think, we went to marriage counseling. We didn't have sex. We prayed together. But then we got divorced after 2 years. How can you do this to me, God? Because we expect more. We expect more. And so when we expect God, basically we think life owes us something or God owes us something. So when we don't get it, we're angry. We're angry. So we feel obligated. Something is obligated to us. Feel that we deserve something. We feel entitled to something. We demand it and we're angry when we don't get it. So think about what is it that you're demanding from God? What is it that you're demanding from God? And that was initially the end. And then I was reminded of a verse, reminded of one passage in 2 Kings with Hezekiah. So 2 Kings 21-5 talks about when God told Hezekiah. So the previous message I was talking about, demanding from God or we're desiring for God. Are we desiring from God or are we demanding from God? But there is a caveat to that. It's not necessarily wrong to be desiring or demanding from God. So in those days, Hezekiah became mortally ill. 2 Kings 21-5 says, in those days, Hezekiah became mortally ill. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came to him and said to him, this is what the Lord says, set your house in order, for you are going to die and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord, saying, please, Lord, just remember how I've walked before you wholeheartedly and in truth, and have done what is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept profusely. And even before Isaiah had left the middle of the courtyard, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, return and say to Hezekiah, the leader of my people, this is what the Lord, the God of father of David says, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. Behold, I'm going to heal you. On the third day, you shall go up to the house of the Lord. So God spoke through a prophet. So when God speaks to a prophet, he speaks, God says, you're going to be enslaved in Israel. God says, there will be I will send a Messiah in the future. God says, so God speaks through prophet. These are the words of God. God is speaking. These are the words of God. So God spoke through a prophet to Hezekiah, you're going to die. You're going to die next week. Get your house in order. So it was prophesied. It was direct word from God. You're going to prophesy. And so, but Hezekiah prayed to God and said, hey, I've been a good servant. Look at all the things I've done for you, God. Look at all that I've done for you. And God actually spared his life. So there was a prophecy that he would die. Hezekiah prayed to God and he spared his life. So it's not that we shouldn't take our desires and our demands to God. David took his demands to God. Hezekiah took his demands to God. But we do see that Hezekiah says, I've walked for you wholeheartedly in truth and have done what is right in your sight. David goes to God. He says, if you can find anything wrong in me, then point it out. So they're petitioning God and they're reminding God of their righteousness. They're reminding God of how they served him and God listened, and God changed the prophecy of it. So we can't take our desires and our demands to God. He does want us to come to him with our demands and our desires. But also we see Hezekiah and David example, they're also coming with him saying, I've served you, I've been righteous, and so hear my prayer, O God. And God heard their prayer and responded. Just walking away, let's seek the truth and live the life.
And so, something that is, I guess, the Lord speaking to me about is that a lot of people, you brought up how a lot of people blame God when things don't go their way. And I think that a lot of people forget that we've been given the gift of free will, and that the majority, if not everything that occurs in this world, right, to us is from the free will of human beings. So, I feel like we need to remind ourselves that, because I hear a lot of people who, when things don't go their way, they're like, God, you messed this up and you did this and it's your fault, and I'm like, wait, didn't we get the gift of free will? So I don't know. I just wonder if we need to talk about free will more, like the gifts that we've been given by God and free will, because maybe if people are reminded about free will, they won't blame God as much for things that happen.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that's happening, and we have the power to kind of control that, right? Based on the decisions we make, or a lot of it anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So there are times when God will give us a trial to change us, or to get us where we need to go. Jonah got swallowed by the whale, and that was God. But there are other situations where it's sowing and reaping. It's a natural consequence of your actions. You threw a rock in the air, you got hit in the head with a rock, and you're blaming God. God, why did you do this to me? No, that's natural consequence. The world is set up in a certain way, and there's natural consequences for actions. And so that's not God. And then, like Patrice said, you have free will. Other people have free will. Other people have free will. And we have an enemy. We have Satan. Satan also has the ability to do things. So if God is doing something, it's for your good. But everything that happens isn't God. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes you overlooked. Sometimes you willingly ignored something. There was a problem. You didn't address it. You chose not to address it. Sometimes you caused it. Sometimes you know why you caused it. And you can't blame God for that. And sometimes there is time and chance, as Ecclesiastes says as well. But and there are evil people as well, and evil people can do evil things to you, and it wasn't necessarily God doing it. It was evil people doing it. And we have an enemy as well. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we close out?
Michael, there was you were talking about Hezekiah, his response when he was told by the prophets. He, instead of accepting it, he decided to pray to God to ask for forgiveness. But in the case of kind of an opposite example of that was Eli and Samuel. When Samuel came to tell Eli what God had told him about his family and what he was about to do to him, instead of asking God for forgiveness and pleading for mercy, he said that he's God. Let him do what he wishes. So which is quite opposite of what this gentleman did right there, Hezekiah did.
Right.
Elijah.
And they had opposite relationships with God. Eli
Yes.
was wicked, whereas Hezekiah, he turned to God. He said, look at the righteous things I've done, God. So please don't do it. Whereas Hezekiah, all he could say was, look at the evil that I've done. So please don't do it.
His children just went overboard. So I guess he just gave up. He just didn't have anything left in him to ask God for forgiveness.
Yeah.
His kids messed up a lot of things, and he was responsible for it.
And I
You
mean,
know?
and God does forgive us. Let's not say, but it's also just the relationship with Him. You know, if you
And you
talk to
could have
somebody,
asked.
if you
You
right,
could have asked for forgiveness.
right, but it's probably a different relationship. So if
Yeah.
you know if the president says, hey, you're gonna go to jail, you know, you don't necessarily feel like you can ask for forgiveness because you don't know him. Whereas if your cousin or your brother
Yes.
becomes mayor and says something, you're like, hey, come on, give me a, you know, because you have the relationship. So you feel, so you can't, Jesus said, you know, to ask and to keep asking, but you may not know that you can ask. I mean, so regardless of what we done, so that, you know, regardless of what we done, you know, we can still come to God and ask for forgiveness. Jesus has died on the cross to forgive our sins. So there's no unforgivable sin that we've committed that is going to separate us from God. So we can always go to God no matter what we've done or where we're at right now. We can always still go to God.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to that personal relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a personal relationship with someone, just like you alluded a little while ago, you can't be asking because you don't even feel you can ask for it.
Right.
It's that personal relationship, that investment you've made, you know, like a total stranger trying to ask you to give him a break. You will feel the same way. You will feel differently if your best friend from work comes to ask you for a break. So it's all about relationship. You are right. So that's the difference between the two of those guys.
Yeah. Okay. Patrice, you can go ahead, then we'll close out.
Yeah, so real quick, you were mentioning that there are evil people in the world, and I've been pondering this a lot, my walk with God, and let me just give you a quick example. There was a girl I knew, and I knew her mom, and her mom used to say, you know, she's like, my daughter is of the devil, right? Because they just had like, I think it was just a rivalry, like a mother-daughter type thing, but I knew that girl, and she was always sweet to me, so I'm like, really? She's so sweet. And then her mom's like, she's of the devil, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that there are times when a person in the eyes of another person, like if someone else can be like, oh my gosh, that person is such a great person, and maybe they interact well with that person. But then that same individual like can treat somebody else differently. They can be nice or a good person to one person, and like evil or a bad person to someone else. And in addition, that person can be good to another party, and to that same party, at times they can be bad. So the point I'm trying to make is that I really feel like with each human being, there's really good and bad in everyone, and that good is displayed at certain times, and bad is displayed at certain times at different levels.
Yeah.
To maybe the same person, or maybe to even different people. Because I know, like, something happened to me in the past year with an individual, and when I brought it up to people, they were like, but he's such a good guy. So I was like, yeah, to you. I guess he didn't do to you what he did to me, but okay. So, they sort of dismissed what I said because they think he's a good guy because of his interaction with them. So, so the point I'm trying to make is I do think that there's good and bad in everyone, and people just release whichever one at certain times to either the same person or to different people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so one person, good person, could be one person, evil person.
Yeah. I heard an expression, something that said, you realize that you're the villain in somebody's story. It's like no matter how good you think you are, you're the villain in somebody's story. Yeah, we all have. I mean, we've all done bad things. We've all done bad things. I mean, and to all, whatever good we've done, it's like filthy rags to the Lord. So I mean, compared to God, we're all equal. Compared to how far we are from God, we're all equal. So yeah. So I didn't mean that in a sense of necessarily judging someone as evil or good, but yeah, there are people who intentionally will do harm. And, probably all of us at some point intentionally harmed someone, even ourselves in some way. right. So anger. So anger. So we will close with that. We have I think the last lesson of anger will be in the next lesson. One more lesson on anger. Anger helps us to understand ourselves. Our anger helps us to understand ourselves and helps us to understand each other. Helps us to understand each other and see things from someone else's point of view. All right, Peter, you want to take us home?
Father, thank you so much for this evening. We get a chance to not only just look at some of the traits of being whole, but being holy before you. And so, Father, as we embrace the cross, Lord, we live in a world that's very reactive, where people feel that their respect is far superior than ours, that their ways are way better than ours, so they need to get their points across. And that makes it very difficult for each and every one of us that live in this world, that try to live a way that's humble and honorable before you. People feel that they deserve this, they have that right, and not really looking at the needs of others, or other people also got rights too. But somehow, because of their seniority, or their privilege, or whatever the reason is, they feel that they are the one that deserves it and you don't. And that makes it very difficult, Lord. We're dealing with many categories of people's expression, all the way from people that's passive aggressive, people that indirectly gossips and blames others. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't gossip, that type of thing. Then you got people that are constantly explosive, and they're very difficult to work with too. It's just that they can't see it. And so, Father, we live in such a world that is so mixed that if we don't have Jesus in our lives, it's impossible to live in this world. To be able to live the proper way. And I can see why people just want to move away and just live in the forest, away from human beings. Just kind of be away from everybody. Just kind of shelter or lock themselves in and come out when they need to. Because every single word, every single look, every single idea could be a threat to other people as well as to ourselves. And that makes it very difficult. Lord, there are a lot of scriptures. Help us to apply these things in the proper way. Give Michael an understanding heart, that he can take these as he deals with different people that may be explosive, may be stuffing, repressive, maybe indirectly passive-aggressive. Help him to experience them in all different modes so that he can actually relate it to us and what he has done and overcome. And give each and every one of us that go through this type of series of stresses how to be able to handle them. Not just retaliate or overpower them, but just like Patrice says, maybe the language of love, maybe you can carve that into us, Lord, that we can be able to walk in that. Jesus walked in it in his flesh as he emptied himself from God, as he emptied his godliness, his skills, and everything else that he's learned. The Bible says that he emptied himself completely, that he became a man. All he did was to grab on your word. So, Father, if he can do it, we pray that you give us the strength to do the same thing too. That we live in such a world that is so broken and everybody feels like everybody needs to respect, or everybody has their own boundaries. That kind of puts people that are in proper perspective very difficult to live, because our boundaries are different. We're set in heaven. So help us, Father, to put the boundary of love in our lives first, and then that we can circulate that to others. Let us be the type of servant that you want us to be. Help us to embrace the cross so that we can be able to share that with others. If we can't, all we do is just kind of lecture them. Totally void of God, void of Christ. So, Father, we ask that your Holy Spirit will fill us first, that we can live an example for others to see. So that when we do bump into the ones that are very, very explosive, the ones that are very, very passively aggressive, the ones that gossips and slander us, and maybe even say and plant things wrong about us, Lord, help us to have that type of love of forgiveness, which is so difficult to live in this world. Help us in that way, Lord, that we can be a replica of who your Son is. Father, we pray that you, at the end of the day, can put your arms around us and embrace us as sons and daughters. That even though we try and we fail repeatedly, your love never stops. Help us to remember that so that we can spread that to others. Guide us on a daily basis, Lord. And then whenever we get a chance to have people's faces pop up in our minds, help us never to be the type of person that will pray for them later. Maybe at that moment, we need to pray for them now. So, Father, we pray for these things. Give us a good night's rest, Lord. And tomorrow morning, bring us a different challenge. But remind us, Lord, the remedy of love inside our soul, that we can practice that. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. All right, everybody. Amen. Well, have a good night.
Michael, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Welcome.
Michael.
Thank you, folks.
Welcome. All right. Well, have
Yeah,
a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.